Hello everybody. Now we're going to look at task planning within Microsoft Project. Okay, so the very first thing that we need to do is insert the tasks into our project schedule. Bearing in mind, we've already done the first video where we were setting up our project. So we already have a start date. We've already set up our project options. So now that I've set my project options up, when I create a new task within my project, it will be auto-scheduled as that's the default that I've now selected. Just bear that in mind. Out of the box, it will be manual, so you won't necessarily see the same results as what I'm seeing. And I'll explain the differences shortly. Okay, so I'm going to keep this very simple. I'm just going to put in here task 1, task 2. So you can see how I'm doing this. I'm just typing names and pressing enter. There is another way. You can come to the task ribbon, and in the insert section of the task ribbon, you can click insert task, like so. That's one way to do it. Some people like that, but then you've just still got to rename it. So my preferred method is just clicking in the cell and typing the name, like so. So you can see that Microsoft Project has it's guessed for me the duration and the dates. So out of the box, Microsoft Project has a default duration of 1 day. It has a default start date for each task of the project start date, and it goes on for 1 day, so it finishes on the same date. Okay. Let's take a look at those manual scheduled tasks. So let's come down to the bottom left-hand corner and click manually scheduled. All right. So now when I type a task name, task 5 for example, so we can see in the task mode column we have a blue pin which represents that this task has been manually scheduled. You can see that it does not get any default duration or start and finish dates. The way I like to think of manually scheduled tasks is you are in charge of the dates. Whereas with auto-scheduled tasks, Microsoft Project is in charge of this and it will handle them for you. So let's leave that task 5 in there and see how we get along. All right. So I'm actually going to now put a milestone into my schedule. Milestone 1. Oh, it's manually scheduled again. All right, so you need to come down to the bottom left-hand corner and select auto-scheduled. That won't change that one that you've already created because that's just a toggle for new tasks. So for this one, I can actually do this in the task mode column, switch it to auto-scheduled, or I could have done it in the tasks section of the task ribbon. You can now see as soon as we make it auto-scheduled, Microsoft Project aims to guess the dates for you and the duration. One last thing then, I want to add a summary task. To do this, again, you can use the insert, oops, I did a task, that works as well. I'm going to do an insert summary here in the insert section of the task ribbon. And we can see we now get this summary task. The way that you can see that a task is in fact a summary task is in the table you will see that it's actually bold. Okay, we have bold text. On the Gantt chart you can see this kind of parenthesis, okay, which means this is the things that I'm summarizing. And you can see it gets this little icon here where we can collapse that up. I actually want to delete that task too. To delete a task, highlight the entire row and press delete, like so. And there we go. Oh, actually that's made this one a summary task now. Because when you delete all of a summary task's subordinate tasks, that summary task then becomes a task. All right, so you can see how that happened. I'm actually going to delete that one as well. So highlight the entire row, press delete. I'm going to insert a summary task. So I actually just inserted a task there. My preferred method is just insert a task and then indent the task that you want to be part of that summary task. I'm going to collapse the summary task so you can see how that works. So summary tasks are great for grouping together related activities within your project so that you can summarize them. It will tell you the overall duration of those tasks. It will tell you the start dates of those tasks. So there's just one problem with my schedule. I'm figuring this out by looking on the Gantt chart. In fact, there's two problems. So on the Gantt chart, the blue lines represent a task. So this milestone is actually not a task. So I'm actually going to make this one a milestone by decreasing the duration to 0 days, like so. There we go. We can see it. We now have the diamond on the Gantt chart. This manually scheduled task doesn't seem to be doing anything though. So I'm actually going to give that a default duration of 1 day. There we go. We can now see this kind of light blue task. And you can see the dates are kind of hazy, like the start and the finish are hazy. That's kind of to represent this is manually scheduled. We're not sure what's going on with this one. It still hasn't given us the dates either. Okay, so I'm going to now have all my tasks in my schedule. In fact, I'm going to switch to a different schedule that I have. All right, so here we have my nice schedule that I created earlier. What I'm going to do is make this task 5 manually scheduled now. I can do that. You can see on the Gantt chart that it doesn't have those hazy start-finish dates like we saw in the previous screen. That's because we've actually inputted dates for these. So because it was auto-scheduled, when you make it manually scheduled, it'll assume that what was previously there is still accurate. All right. So what I want to do is not only estimate the duration of tasks, but I've actually inserted the work column, as you remember from the presentation. Here it is. This is not there by default. You have to insert this column. So I'm going to come in here and first of all estimate my durations. How long is this task going to take in terms of when's it going to start and when's it going to finish? Okay, so I'm going to come in here and give this one 3 days. You'll notice when you've actually come in here and given the task a duration that you've specified yourself, those question mark goes away. So the question mark represents, hey, this is an estimate of the estimate, I like to think. Okay. As soon as you actually type something, it goes away. And you see that if it's previously 1, if I give it just 1, just the question mark goes away. Well, there's that manually scheduled one. Let's give that a duration of 5 days. Task 6, maybe 4 days, 3 days, 7 days, 2 days, 1 day. And obviously the milestones stay at 0 days because a milestone is a 0-day duration task. Okay, so what we're seeing now, I'm going to move my Gantt chart over slightly. We can see that the summary tasks are summarizing the duration of our overall phases. So you can see that the summary task for phase 2 is 7 days because the longest task there is task 8 and that is 7 days. And phase 1 summary task is representing task 5 at the moment because that is the longest task in terms of duration. Okay, the next thing I want to do is estimate work hours. So not only are we going to estimate the duration, but we're going to estimate the work, so the actual effort involved in each task. A task can take 3 days, as task 1 is doing right now, but within that task there might not be full-time work there. It might just be that we need to, do a couple of hours work. So for task 1, I'm going to say, as opposed to it being 21 hours, we'll say, well, maybe there's only 16. So, just 2 days of actual full-time work, but in a 3-day period, sorry. For task 2, I'm going to say, well, there's just 4 hours work there. Task 3, maybe 27. Task 4, it's 1 day, maybe that's 8 hours. Task 5, well, we'll say it's 5 days. Let's just give that 40 days. 40 hours, I mean. There we go. Task 6, 4 days. Maybe we'll just give that one 50 hours. Ooh, in a 4-day period. Let's see what happens. Interesting. So it's got 50 hours in a 4-day period. You'd have thought that the duration would increase there, but it didn't. That's because we're not talking resources yet. At the moment, we're just saying, look, it's 50 hours work to do in a 4-day period. That's it. It can be done, if you have 2 guys. All right, I think for the rest of the work effort, we'll just leave those blank and see how they behave. Okay. The next thing I need to do is link my tasks together. So for the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to make it very easy. And we're going to have kind of a linear project. Okay, so we're just going to click through like so. And I'm going to say that task 1 happens, then task 2, then task 3, then task 4, then task 5, then milestone 1. Okay, so I'm going to click on the first task, drag down to the milestone 1, and click link tasks. You'll notice when I did this, I'm not linking summary tasks. That's a big no-no in the Microsoft project world. Okay, as a best practice, do not link summary tasks together. Just link the tasks within them. You know, if you do link the summary tasks together, and bearing in mind Microsoft Project will allow you to do it, you can create circular logic within your schedules and really mess things up. So my advice is do not do it. Also, when linking from milestone 1, if you want to link to task 6 here, well, what you can do, oops, didn't mean to do that. You can click on milestone 1, then hold down the control key and click on task 6. Always be careful when using the control key though, because if I was to do this like so, I'm clicking in random orders here, and then link, you'll see how the tasks are linked. Let's click on the view ribbon and let's click selected tasks, and we can see those in the Gantt chart now. So they're all over the place. That's because I use the control key. So best not to use the control key, or use caution when doing it. So I do need to use it from milestone 1 to task 6. I'm going to link those two together. And then without using the control key, I'm going to go from 6 down through 2. Milestone 2. Like so. Now they're all linked together. So what I like to do, you might have seen I did this a minute ago. I like to see everything in my Gantt chart in one go. Whenever I'm doing linking, it's pretty important to me for the way that I like to work, to see what's going on within the Gantt chart. So for this reason, I'm going to click on the view ribbon and click entire project. This is going to adjust the time scale to show me everything all in one go. Okay, looks like something strange is happening here. I think I may have forgotten to delete my predecessors or undo before. Oh, okay. Well, what you'll notice in the predecessor columns, when I've been doing these things and linking, Microsoft Project has been populating the predecessor column for me. So whenever you link two tasks together, all that really happens behind the scenes is the predecessor column is updated. So theoretically, if I click delete here, we're back to normal. And there we go. We're back to normal. So let's show you that again. Milestone 1 to task 6. And I'm going to click on the task ribbon and then link them using the link task button in the schedule section of the task ribbon. You can see they're linked. Perfect. The next thing I want to do is link all of the rest in order. I'm going to do it in a different way this time. You don't have to use the visual way of clicking and then pressing the link task button. You can, if you're a numbers person, come into here, and what you're going to enter into the predecessors column, let me expand this out slightly, you're going to enter the number, the ID number of the task that you want to link to. For example, task 6, we wanted to link it to milestone 1. Well, milestone 1 is in line 7 right now. So, predecessor column, it says 7. Well, I want to link task 7 to task 6, so I'm going to put 9, which is this one here. 9. And then obviously 10, 11, 12, 13, like so. And again, I'm going to do my view, entire project, and I can see that everything is linked in order, which is really why I like to see my Gantt chart to do a quick sanity check and make sure I'm happy with everything. It really does help you to catch anything that goes wrong. Okay, so we have linked everything in the schedule, finish to start. Okay, now what I do want to do, however, excuse me, is change a couple of the task dependency types. Okay, I'm not going to go into a deep dive in task dependencies, but what I'm going to show you is how you can change the way that the relationship between the two different tasks. For example, between tasks 3 and 4, I might like them to start at the same time, for whatever reason. To do this, I'm going to double click on the link between the two tasks, which gives me the task dependency dialog. This is the only way to get this particular dialog up, is to click on the link between the two, which can be kind of difficult. Okay. What I'm going to do is change that to start to start. Both these tasks must start on the same date. And I'm going to press OK. You can see what happens. Okay, so task 3 and task 4 now have the same start dates. By modeling that relationship, Microsoft Project has calculated the dates for us. We can see that the finish date has just been updated. We know this because we have the blue change highlighting. And we can see the same thing in the start date. So that blue change highlighting represents what was affected by the last change that you made. Okay, so one other thing that I'm going to show you is how to add a lag between two tasks. All right, so I'm going to say between tasks 8 and 9 down here that I need to have a lag. I want to say, well, after task 8 is finished, perhaps that's painting some walls, we need to wait 5 days before we can start prepping for decoration or whatever. Okay, so to do this, I'm going to double click on the link between the two tasks. And again, in this lag dialog, I'm going to say 5 days. So let's see what happened there. Entire project again. So you can see how instead of increasing the duration of task 8, which would increase the overall effort, potentially, if you add a resource assigned to it, we just added a lag. You can see that it's modeled as this small line, which means there's no effort here. There's just an external constraint that we can't help. There's a lag before we can get the next task started. That's the correct way to model that. Don't be tempted to increase the duration of a task to model something outside of the control and the scope of the project. Because if you assign a resource to that, there's going to be work involved there and therefore cost. All right, one more thing. I'm going to double click on the link between task 6 and 7. And I'm going to say that when task 6 is 50% of the way through, I want to start task 7. Well, to do this, I could look at the duration of task 6 and decrease my lag to a negative 2-day lag. And we can see now that that works. However, what happens if task 6 goes from 4 to 8 days? We're now starting almost 75% way through. Not what I wanted. So I'm actually going to double click on that. And I'm going to say, as opposed to just doing a number of days, I'm going to say negative 50%. Nice. I really like this method because it keeps the schedule dynamic, and things change, durations push out. We can see those things happening, and Microsoft Project will reschedule accordingly. Pretty nice. Okay, that is actually it for this video. So what have we done? We've come in, we've put our tasks in, we've estimated durations and work effort. We've seen how the dates are calculated. We have linked our tasks together. We have done that in a variety of ways. We have added some different types of dependencies. So we did a start to start. We've also put in some lags between our tasks using plus lags, negative lags, and negative percentage lags to model detailed scheduling situations. Now, those kind of things are a little extreme, quite rare that might happen, but certainly good to know how to do those things. So what I recommend is you have a play with the different task dependencies. There are various videos online that go deep dive into these things. Take a look at those and figure out those more. They're quite important if you really have a detailed model that you want to create. Well, thanks for watching this video and click on the next one. Thank you.